Welcome everybody to another episode of the Corner Blue, episode number 51. I'm Andres Rico and I'm here with Hugo Alvarado. Just wanted to check in with the next step. You know, it's been a long summer. A lot of us been waiting on our phones, eager for more information coming out of El Salvador with the situation with the federation and what was going to eventually happen. And finally it has happened. And really briefly, I mean, in a sense, it's good news. We have right now a regularizing committee, basically a transition committee that has been named by FIFA that is set in place to start making sure that the bylaws of the Fesfut match enough with Indes, but continue to be valid under the FIFA statutes or bylaws, which means the previous board of directors and anyone that was hoping to re-elect themselves for the next elections for the Fesfut have automatically been disqualified, which means, you know, it seems like there's this open avenue to outsiders to be interested, if they're interested, to being involved in the process of elections. We still do not have that confirmed, but it's looking like new faces are coming to the Fesfut. Hugo, based off of the little information that's been out there, what is your status right now? First of all, how are you doing? And then if you can go into what your status is with the federation or what you have heard so far.
Well, first of all, the last time we recorded an episode, it was about a month ago, and it was, you know, during the we were talking about the suspension. We were not suspension, but
the possible suspension was
clear.
The
possible suspension. There were a lot of unknowns. The employees of the federation were there, but they couldn't go in, and it was just we feared the worst, which was a suspension, which it's usually 2 years. Meant that we were most likely not be playing the next World Cup qualifier. So, well, right now I'm doing well. I'm feeling hopeful that, you know, with the new committee, you know, positive results can happen. I think that one of the most positive results will be that the statutes allow more space for perhaps outsiders meaning people who are not necessarily involved in the current environment of the Salvadorian football in general can come in. And I'm not necessarily talking about people from outside of El Salvador, but, you know, as we know, the way things have been, there was just no space. You know, there was no space for someone who has not been involved in one way or another with one of the professional leagues.
Yeah, it all seemed in-house, you know, part of the industry.
It was all in-house, and it was just kind of like a circle of the same people electing themselves. So you had a president, and then whoever was the vice president for the past 8 years would then become the president, and we kept seeing more of the same. Well, in terms of my status, you mean like my status as the scout of the national teams?
Yeah, like have you been in touch with the federation at all, or, you know, how is that playing out for you?
Well, it is an unknown for me. Just to be very straightforward with people, I've always said that I don't get paid what I do, and that's true. But what is also true is that when I was named the scout, I never signed anything. So, you know, realistically speaking, I'm not really, as far as the new committee is concerned, they probably don't know much about my existence yet.
Or your affiliation was more like symbolic than anything official.
That's correct, paper. And that's right. The president back then knew me because we had met during friendly matches, you know, for a few years actually, and we will always say hello. He knew who I was. He knew what I was doing, but he would never really approach me with um, a proposal of any sort. And I'm not, when I say proposal, I'm not necessarily talking about a financial proposal, but I was never approached with an idea of me becoming the official scout. As we all know, it was Diego Enriquez who gave me that opportunity when he became the director of the national teams. So I continue. I mean, I'll continue doing my work because it is something that it's meaningful to me. It is. I believe it has a lot of value. I believe it has paid many dividends. As a lot of you know, a lot of the players who have the dual nationals who have played for the national team, who are part of the current national team, a lot of those I've been following for many years and have been involved in one way or another with them. So I'm hopeful that there's going to be some communication at some point soon, just to make sure that I can continue doing what I'm doing and still be recognized in some way, so that I can continue doing my job
On behalf of the federation,
on behalf of the federation.
Mhm.
Right. So yeah, I mean it's all good. I'm feeling hopeful. They all seem like very highly professional people who know what they're doing, and they have a lot on their hands. They have a lot on their plate. There's a lot they have to fix, and a lot of fires they had to put out immediately. So I'm just here waiting. I'm gonna continue doing what I do and continue working and finding players, and we'll see what the future brings.
No, I mean, at this point, that's literally all you can do. But it is interesting how we went from the possibility of, nothing happening for 2 years to all of a sudden FIFA names the transitional committee. And from the little information that's out there, if you haven't been able to check it out, it appears that most of the people put in charge by FIFA, by CONCACAF, don't have experience within the industry, of soccer in El Salvador or at a professional level, but most of them seem to be corporate attorneys that have dealt with international cases and representing international corporations and entities. So in this case, when you're dealing with something, that's borderline judicial, it literally is transnational. It does make sense that these types of figures would be in place to basically do this relaunch or this reboot of La Fesfut. Granted, there is some skepticism by certain sectors, certain journalists, fans, that, this committee is working now, but once it leaves, literally it's going to be the same representatives of the first division, second, third division, the alphas, and how are things going to look like moving forward in terms of elections? How is it going to change? How is there going to be any change in terms of what we've seen in the past? Because it's not like all of a sudden, new players new figures are going to spawn out of nowhere. This is obviously going to be a transition, but it'll be interesting to see how it plays out, where you have people used to the old modus operandi, and how do you move forward to make sure that, Salvadoran soccer doesn't get stuck in the mud for another 40 years.
You just describe why it's become important, and even more important now that there's an opportunity to change the bylaws, to change the method in which the leaders of the federation are being chosen. And that includes not only opening the space for outsiders, but also the voting method, who has the voting power, and allowing some voting power to some outside forces. I don't know what that would look like, but that can include players, for example. I mean, players are the ones affected not the most, but they are a big part of the entire mismanagement that we've seen throughout the years. With always having issues with the payment, with the bonuses, with
Contracts.
everything.
Mm.
It happens all the time. So they get to travel to friendly games, or I think for the most part in friendly games they are treated very well by the organizers. But when they travel to qualifiers, some of the conditions have not been ideal. So I think just allowing players to have voting power can be a step forward, and there should be others as well who I think should have voting power in addition to opening the doors to outside candidates outside of the current structure. That's going to be important. Otherwise, I fear that it will be more of the same. So I think that this committee has a big responsibility at hand, because I think they know. I mean, we got into this situation. We got very close to being suspended, and they are well aware what the situation was. And if anything, I mean, whether we like it or not, the way that Indes managed the situation, one of the positive outcomes can be that a lot of the issues surrounding the election of the leaders of the federation, it came to light, and it became a topic, an international topic, and I'm sure that it got to the ears of FIFA, and hopefully that is one of the things that is addressed by this committee.
Yeah, I mean, it's all been so complex. I think one of the main issues is that the league and the federation have seemed to be kind of almost one and the same thing, where you have people from the league then going over to the federation and running it like the league. And the league, as we've seen for years, has been in a total disarray for years, when I feel like there should be almost like a separation of church and state in that case, where the league, to become stronger, I feel needs to be more independent and be able to run itself as a business and not be so fractured, and then not tend to blend into the federation. And if the federation could lead the way in terms of organizing federation youth national teams, female teams, and then setting up the standards so that the league has to follow suit and follow the lead of the federation as separate entities, I think there will be room for more growth, because I feel like for the most part, you look at all the other leagues or federations in the world, I don't see them as conjoined as it has been in El Salvador. Like, we had people representing youth recreational, like Las Alfas, voting for the federation, or having a substantial power to be a part of elections in the federation. Same thing with second and third division teams that all of a sudden will disappear, right? Maybe they'll exist a couple tournaments and disappear, and they have like immense voting power in terms of the decisions that go on with the federation. I feel that in and of itself kind of showed the problems with the electoral process, and that blending where there wasn't that division needed so that both entities can grow and manage their roles. I think everything was blended in, and you had too many people dipping their hats in, in different piles. Like, for example, just Carrillo in and of itself, being a member of the board for Marte, and that simultaneously being a part of the federation. And you see the results of Marte and then you see the results of the federation. It's like, come on, man. I think you're doing a little too much there. And I think the results speak for themselves in that respect. And we've seen it throughout these years. And my biggest hope is that we see that difference, that separation, that we see people that aren't necessarily within the league moving over to the federation and vice versa, that opening so that people within the industry or different aspects of it, not just the first division or second division, third division, can have that opening, come in and help with the youth development, can come and help with the women's game, and then can come and help with the men's national team, which, there's just been too many distractions and disorganization the last years. So we have yet to see that. And I think everything is pointing towards that direction, especially with the friendly match for the men's senior squad being announced recently. They're playing Peru on the 27th in DC, if I'm not mistaken. And from going from a possible suspension to, okay, here we're playing one of the top South American squads. They almost made it to Qatar. They made it to the last World Cup. Peru's been on the come up. To get a friendly match of that level on a FIFA match date, it is a sigh of relief, right? It is to me, and I'm pretty sure to a lot of fans. What do you think about the match? Do you think, what can you get out of a match like this? FIFA match day, you assume Peru's going to be there with its main squad, or who knows if they're going to try out different guys, considering that they're looking to 2026. But what do you think about a match like this, or what sensations do you get? Is it a necessary match? Is it just a cover up, or is it fine tuning? What do you think?
Well, there were opportunities to play. There have always been opportunities to play. Really good opportunities were lost due to the situation that we had a month ago or 2 months ago.
The match with Argentina.
Argentina being one of them. It's positive. I always see it as positive to play, especially when you're playing rivals like Peru, who, though we beat 2-0 last time, and they were coming back from a World Cup, or they had qualified to a World Cup. This time around, they were very close. They are definitely a really good opponent for us at a very good venue for both teams, for Salvadorians and Peruvians. It's good. I think it's necessary. Remember that we have an official match in March, and after September, I'm not sure if we have any other FIFA windows. Maybe November. I'm not sure if there's another one. But I think we need to get all the games we can get, considering that we play the US next year in March. So it's a good match. I mean, we're gonna be seeing different teams. I mean, Peru is coming with a new coach. The coach they had for the last 2 World Cup qualifiers is gone now. Now they have a new coach, so there's going to be some new players, probably a new style. So it's going to be an interesting match. Then we haven't played in a while. A lot of our players haven't been playing because of the league being suspended. So it's good. It's going to be good to play. And as usual, we're not going into a highly competitive game in the best conditions, unfortunately.
Yes, you do wish that when you face, the marquee national teams from South America, that you would have a little more rhythm, and that's something that Hugo Perez is going to have to deal with. Is basically the guys in USL that are getting minutes, MLS that are getting minutes, are going to be the most fit. But other than that, the nationals or the players playing the domestic league aren't going to start until a couple of days from now, when the league restarts, which obviously is good news, but we'll touch that in a little bit. I think surprisingly is you see the return of the players that it was obvious that there was some sort of conflict left over after the debacle before the match with Canada, the aftermath of the Honduras win. You see the return of Roldan, you see the return of Zabaleta. And then, more importantly, something that's interesting about this call up is you see Brian Hill finally seemingly saying yes to a call up. Oh, and he's going to hopefully be playing along with his two brothers, or at least being on the squad with his two brothers. And then you start to see those U20 pieces being thrown into the mix, as the coaching staff had mentioned. So I think, all things considered, yes, they won't be game fit, but what a way of starting the next chapter by getting, a really good sparring partner, and then making those tweaks to the squad that gives you hope, in the sense that, okay, the Perez's are going to continue bring new blood in, trying to find that balance between the veterans and the new blood to get the results needed. But I think you're going to see this one as that first step of transitioning to more of the younger guys. I think the back line, I think, looks pretty solid. It'll be interesting to see if Perez goes with Cabalceta and Zabaleta at the same time.
You have to.
That's a duo that we haven't
you,
seen yet, and I think that's what I'm most interested in seeing, is how those guys play off of each other.
I'm just joking.
It's okay. It's okay.
Yeah, I don't know how, but yeah, I think Eric. I was just watching Cabalceta last night, I think, or 2 nights ago, when they play Alianza, and I was very impressed by his form, considering that he was without a club for a few months, and he didn't do preseason with any club. And his form is very good right now. And then Zabaleta was starting to get some minutes with the Galaxy, and then suddenly he's not even appearing in the squad. But we know of his quality. But yeah, it will be. I think in the back line, at least in the center back position, it seems like we're well covered by Zabaleta, Cabalceta, Ronald. Left side, that's where we still lack depth. I mean, we have Larin, and we have Nelson Flores, I think. It's his last name. And then right back is another position where we have Tamacas, and we also know that we have Roldan, but Roldan can play anywhere. But it would be nice to find another good player who can play in that position. Yeah, it will be interesting to see if the U20s get minutes. Revalo has been starting to get a few minutes with New York City FC too. And then we have the guy from oh God, right now. Just for everyone to know, it's 10 o'clock here, so we're a little tired. The guy from Loudoun United, DC United, and Loudoun United, Jeremy Garay, who's been playing. He's been getting a lot of minutes for Loudoun United. Yeah, it will be interesting. And then I think with the Heel, I'm just kind of still waiting until we see him.
I won't believe it till he's on the pitch. Yeah.
I think strategically speaking, I think it was very smart from Hugo to call O3 because it creates a bond, and it's like, okay, two of them are going, but you're not gonna go or what, So it's I think, I mean, I'm not doubting the quality of the other two. I think they're both. I mean, Christian has shown in the senior level that he has a lot of potential, and he has a lot of interesting things that he can do. Meyer, he's more on the younger side, but he's shown some very interesting things with the U20. And Brian, of course, is the one we've been wanting, and having those three, it will be quite interesting to see. So I think it was smart to call all three of them,
Yeah, I
and
haven't
we'll
looked it
see.
up, but I wonder what the record is of siblings on the pitch at the same time, because that would be interesting
I
to
don't
find.
think there's ever been three siblings
Hmm.
in a national team. I'm not an expert in history, but it's unusual. It's quite unusual, especially if all three of them play at the same time. I know there's been brothers. There's been
The De Boers in the
divorce.
Netherlands,
Romania had a couple brothers, I think, um, who played.
Mexico, the Los Santos brothers,
Mexico. We had the Corrales brothers, uh, mm, uh, Rudy and Mardoqueo, but something like that. Corrales, they play like in the 90s, they played together. Um, and that's it, right?
I mean, Mexico's siblings, I don't know if they played at the same time, but I know he had at least one or two siblings ahead of him that played. I think even one might have made it to the national team. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so that's like the other series of siblings is the Pachines. That's
The
what they call.
Pachines.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. So that's where we are. And when it comes to the national team, I mean, we'll be reaching out to the coaching staff along the way, and players, and see what it's like to come back and with this hopefully new environment. Because I think if we can put all these distractions aside, you know, only positive things can come out of it. And if we can keep this pace up with the friendly matches, because it hurts to let something like Argentina get away, but I think Peru was a really good pivot or substitute. It would have been a shame if, due to the instability or uncertainty at the federation, that we wouldn't have gotten to see La Selecta play until next year. So it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out, and hopefully get another match or two before the end of the year. I think I'm still not completely satisfied with how the calendar of the tournament or the season in El Salvador is going to play out, where the players are basically going to play 5 weeks, if that. It's going to be a shortened season. I was kind of hoping that they'd consolidate both tournaments of the year into one long one. That way the players could get that time in, get paid, because you're still going to have a shortened season. They're not going to get paid for the time lost. And then you have that preseason time in the middle. I don't know how they're going to organize that, but I was kind of hoping that they do that more reminiscent of the old school longer tournament, and take it from there. I think that's one of the final pieces that you'd hope kind of elevates itself. And there's been talking to Salvador about it, of the Players Association being able to unite, have more clout in terms of negotiating, because it just seemed like the federation reverted to its old ways, in a sense, where it didn't seem like the players' interest or employees of the league in that sense were taken too much into consideration by having, I would call it a Mickey Mouse tournament, because it's only 4 or 5 months, 2 groups, just a weird format. In my opinion, unnecessary. I feel like they could have done something else. But the point is, La Liga Mayor is back. La Selecta is back. And I think the regularizing committee has about a 12-month span to get things into order, and take things from there. And it'll coincide with Gold Cup next year, and qualifiers starting up soon after. And all we can do is sit back and enjoy the ride. It's been one of those epitome moments of what it is to be a Salvadoran fan, when you start talking about the masochism involved, the toxicity, where you're just waiting to get that response, and hopefully La Selecta will be back. And you don't know if they're gonna be back, even though all this shady stuff has happened. You're just still hoping for the best, hoping to see some light to give you hope to keep putting on that kit or caring about the team. And I ain't gonna lie, I think with this friendly match and this change looming at the federation, there's nothing but hope moving ahead. Obviously, taking it with a little mesura, um, but I think positive things lie ahead. And I think, I don't know, when it comes to the coaching staff, it seems like they're not going to rock the boat. That they're going to continue working with the current staff. But it will also be interesting to see how that plays out, because there hasn't been any announcement officially saying like, okay, we're ratifying Hugo Perez and his staff and honoring the contract signed by the previous administration. That has yet to be made official or published, because there was, question marks surrounding that. But yeah, moving forward, that's what we can hope for. And this is all the information we know. So that's the rehash of it. It's funny. We've been busy this whole summer. Like on a personal level, I reopened the project that I did with the U20s. I'm announcing it here, so you guys are hearing it first. So I decided it's almost 10 years since the last U20s World Cup. The whole, basically it was a magical run. I can't call it anything else. It was all of a sudden, spur of the moment. A lot of people didn't see it coming, except for the squad members and members of the coaching staff and people at FESA, of course, that worked to develop most of those players. But considering how things have evolved the last 10 years, I've always wanted to kind of revisit that moment, considering that I worked really hard to do a documentary on that whole story. But due to many factors, even making a documentary about this team was kind of like anticlimactic, and it didn't work out the first time around. But soy terco, and now that the 10-year mark is coming up, I decided, I kind of want to reopen this story, figure out what the next stage of the story has been. And so little by little, I've been reaching out to players and trying to write something that makes sense. And so this summer I restarted. I was able to go out to Mexico and visit Oliver Ayala, who's living out in León, and catching up with him and figuring out, what was the story behind him going from Mexico to El Salvador and then, retiring prematurely. So it was cool kicking it with them. Got to go to the León Stadium, which is basically a clone of El Cusca. Like, it was almost like the upside down alternate universe. Like, literally the architecture is the same, like the same architecture design, both stadiums. So that was an interesting setting to do the interview at. And along the way, I'll be sharing how the project evolves. But I just wanted to share that with you guys. That's kind of part where I've been busy and dedicating time to other things. But we're committed to doing this thing as regularly as we can. I know Uwo's been super busy. Like, both of us have kids, and one thing I'm learning is the the routines with your kids constantly change. And so later and later we're having to meet up because of bedtime routines and stuff like that. And it's almost 10:30 right now, and we've been working all day, doing our thing all day. But for the love of the team and wanting to share with the listeners and just having fun talking about the national team, we're going to keep doing this. So just wanted to remind you of our commitment to pulling this thing off, and thanks for being patient and listening. Ooh, do you want to add anything before we head on out?
No, hopefully we can record more frequently, and that there's going to be more to talk about. There's a U17 coming up, so we should start seeing more activity with that team. And look forward to the next one, and hopefully have a guest. We're trying to bring some guests, into the show. So if you want to see Luis Anaya or any of those guys, let us know.
Yeah,
send us a message.
We don't mind. And it's something that I've been seriously thinking too, is also to like open up the pool or the possibilities for guests, is doing some, even if it has to be strictly in Spanish, we can do those in Spanish, and break them down in English before and after, for the audio only for the podcast, and then maybe putting like subtitles for a YouTube video, something like that. Even though, I'm not John Boy, I don't have like hella people working for me or getting paid and stuff. Even though props to John Boy. Have you seen those day in the lives? Like, those are pretty cool videos of all they get to do with creating their own media and content, how they've been able to grow that. But in the meantime, we're here with the Corner Blue. We just hit the 2-year mark, so congrats, Hugo. Thanks for being a part of this journey so far. We're so busy we weren't even able to record right when that second anniversary hit, which was like a couple weeks ago. But yes, imagine 2 years later, we're on the brink of a new chapter in terms of qualifying. Some remnants or possibilities of stability coming our way in terms of the federation, and we'll just see where it goes from there. So again, thanks to everyone for tuning in, liking, subscribing, telling your tios about this. And buckle up, guys. It's just starting for the next qualifying round. So we'll see you guys next time, and we'll be updating you when the next episode drops. Have a good one.